I request Shereen to please lead the panel onto the stage. I request Mahender Singh ji, I request Upender Gupta ji, and I request Manish Sinha ji to please be on the panel with Mr. Lakshmikumaran. So please. Upender Gupta ji and Manish Sinha ji are Commissioner GST, and Mahender Singh ji is Member GST, who's been kind enough to grace the panel. I request Lakshmikumaran sir to please greet Mahender Singh ji with a bouquet, please. Shereen, it's all yours. Shereen absolutely does not need an introduction. She's one of the premier journalists in this country. She's the managing editor of CNBC-TV 18. And for whoever who doesn't follow ratings, and I know many of you all don't, CNBC over the last couple of months, the ratings according to BARC, which is a unbiased TRP tracking agency, the CNBC ratings are more than any other English news channel, including the general news channel. So she is the managing editor of the #1 English news channel today in the country. And I've had the pleasure of working with her at CNBC for a while. And thanks, Shereen, so much for gracing this panel and for making this event happen and lending all your support. And I request her to please start the keynote panel.
Thank you very much, Arun. I've had the privilege and the pleasure of working with Arun very closely while he was at CNBC-TV 18, and we're delighted that we've been able to continue that partnership here through the CNBC-TV 18 Taxsutra GST conclaves. Arun, thanks very much for that word of appreciation. Yes, CNBC-TV 18 over the last few months, in fact, not just the last few weeks, for the last few months, is India's largest English news channel, not just the #1 business news channel, it's India's largest English news channel. So I think that is a vote of confidence for the fact that good quality journalism still has viewers in this country. So without further ado, let me start by talking about why we are here today. It's been almost a year since the advent of the GST. We've been talking about it on CNBC-TV 18 for several months now. And of course, the gentlemen here on this panel have also been part and party of those conversations that we've had. The fact of the matter is that today we're going to be talking about the macro picture when it comes to the goods and services tax. We're calling it the GST 2.0, the reset button that is being hit at this point in time. To take the conversation forward, joining us today, Mr. Mahender Singh, member of the GST at the CBEC. Also with us, Mr. Manish Kumar Sinha, Commissioner of Central Excise, Mr. Upender Gupta, Commissioner GST Policy Cell, and Mr. V. Lakshmikumaran, Managing Partner at Lakshmikumaran and Sridharan. Gentlemen, appreciate you joining us here. Sir, if I could start by asking you, Mr. Singh, we've seen several meetings of the GST Council, and the last meeting of the GST Council that took place couldn't really arrive at a few key decisions. And let me start by asking you about the #1 issue that most people would like clarity on, and that is the simplification as far as the forms are concerned. Our understanding is that there is a difference of opinion between the CBEC and how you would like to address this issue and the formula or the approach that's being proposed by Mr. Nandan Nilekani and Infosys. Now, has there been any meeting of minds? Has there been a middle ground that has been arrived at? How soon can we see a decision being taken as far as the simplification of forms are concerned, sir? Yeah, it's fine.
Thank you, Shereen. This is a very important question about the forms, that is the returns, which has been plaguing actually GST right from the beginning. There have been a lot of concerns about the forms which were introduced, and all of you are aware that after some time we had to introduce GSTR 3B form instead of GSTR 2 and 3. GSTR 1 is still there. So a lot of concerns had been raised in various forums by the trade industry, and we also realized that there is a need to simplify the forms. And for that, a committee was formed under the chairmanship of Honorable Deputy Chief Minister of Bihar. And a lot of work has been done on this. So far as the question of meeting the mind is concerned, you know, discussions are taking place. Our primary concern, so far as government is concerned, is to ensure that on every invoice which is issued on which ITC credit is taken, tax is paid. This is our primary foremost concern. And on this basis, by taking, this is the, you know, basic concept, then we move ahead. There are discussions are taking place, and we are very close
So
to
the
finalizing
basic
them.
disagreement is on invoice matching?
We won't call it disagreement, but this is our main concern which we have raised, and they have their own, you know, way of simplification. But in the process of simplification, we want to ensure that the tax which is due to the government is coming on time, and there is no fraudulent transactions in the economy. So that is our primary concern, and they also appreciate it. We appreciate their point of view of simplification. Discussions are going on, and we hope to reach some final decision very soon.
Could we expect that decision in the next meeting of the GST Council, sir? Because you've anyway decided to extend the GSTR 3B for another few months.
Well, I won't be able to give the timeline, but we are very close to finalizing this. Discussions are taking place in very right atmosphere. We are raising our concerns, and they are coming out with their solutions, their way of designing the forms.
Okay, let me move now to Mr. Sinha and talk to you about one of the other pending issues that requires clarification. And a decision on this front was taken by the GST Council when it last met, and that has to do with e-way bills. Now, we had an aborted start on the 1st of February. You're now hoping that on the 1st of April you'll be able to start, and on the 15th of April you will start interstate, and that will happen in batches. What are the concerns that you still have with respect to the e-way bill, and how confident do you feel about being able to meet the April 1st timeline, sir?
Hello. This time around, the infrastructure, IT infrastructure is much better than it was earlier. As you know, this project is being done by, not by Infosys, but by
NIC, yes.
So earlier, the IT infrastructure of NIC at Karnataka was being used, where the pilot has already been running for last few months, and every day it is able to generate more than 1 lakh of e-way bills. Now that infrastructure has been shifted to Delhi, in our previous launch, we attempted the launch from the same infrastructure. Infrastructure has now been upgraded many times over. So we are reasonably confident that this time around you will not see IT glitches. Also, it has been phased out. As you yourself mentioned, initially we will do interstate. Once it stabilizes, and we are hopeful that it will stabilize, after that intrastate will come in batches of 4. That's how it is.
So you're confident that 1st of April you should be able to get started with the e-way bill system?
Yes, we are confident, and this date is going to stay. And you will see a smooth rollout of
There have been many
e-way
dates,
bill.
sir, where the government has felt confident, and it said that this date will stay, but then it hasn't. So is this going to end up like that?
Well, what do you expect me to answer? This will stay. We are reasonably confident that the infrastructure and preparation are in place.
Okay. Mr. Gupta, let me come to you, sir. And I know that this is an issue that you've already discussed here in some form or fashion, but for the sake of our TV audience, let me get clarity from you, because we're given to understand that at the level of the Prime Minister's office, the matter of exporter refund has been raised, and there have been a few meetings that have happened just last week on being able to address this issue. Where do things stand? Because the government says it's the exporting community's fault. They're filling the forms the wrong way. There are concerns that have been raised with respect to how they're filing their returns, etc. Exporters are saying, look, we've been coming to the government, and yet our problems are not addressed. In fact, the Commerce Ministry is now taking up this issue as well with finance as well as the PMO. Where do things stand?
No, as you are aware that 15th today, we have started a refund clearance fortnight, which is up to 29th for 2 weeks. Today itself, we have issued a circular clarifying all these points which were raised to us by the trade and industry. The circular is already available on our website. The problem...
What is the quantum of the blocked refunds today, sir?
Blocked refunds numbers, you know, it would be the total refund claims which has come to us according to information available is about 28,000 crores, out of which about 11,000 crores have already been released.
Okay.
So remaining IGST refund is handling by through customs, as you are aware. So there the problem of mismatch in GSTR 1 and 3B is there. Solution has been found. So whatever claims have come to customs and many more which are pending in GSTN, we are trying to get them pushed to customs from GSTN. So we hope that the substantial chunk of this refund claims would be cleared. The problem with respect to ITC refunds was pointed, many concerns was raised. We have clarified about 14 points today in the circular which have been issued, so that the refunds are processed in a uniform manner by the center as well as the state tax authorities. The circular which has been issued clarifies all the concerns which were told to us.
Okay.
So it gives the clear guidelines, what are the documents which are to be seen while processing, what is to be seen by way of declarations which the exporters are submitting, what is to be done in case of mismatches. Everything has been clarified today.
Okay.
And we are hopeful that most of this we should be able to see a marked improvement on 29th.
Okay, you are hoping for a marked improvement on the 29th. It's a 14-point clarificatory circular that you've issued today. Mr. Singh, let me come back to you now, ask you about what we can expect in terms of the trend line when it comes to revenue. So far we continue to trend a little under 90,000 crores, sir. The expectation of the government was at the start that you will be able to do 90 plus. That's how the calculation had been worked out. Given the fact that you're hopeful of the e-way bill coming in from the 1st of April, etc. as well, what is the assumption on the revenue trend line?
If you analyze the revenue trends, last few months, you will see that the first couple of months revenue was well over 90,000 crore rupees. It started coming down with effect from the month of October, I think. And a couple of months it was down. Last couple of months it is slightly picking up. But now we are contemplating introducing slightly, in phases you can say, enforcement measures.
The danda is coming.
Danda is not coming. Danda is not coming, but we are hopeful that with the introduction and implementation of the e-way bill, with the introduction of new return, compliance will increase, and we hope that revenue will ultimately pick up. Because we have our feedback system also, and we are aware there are many taxpayers who became complacent. There were some IT issues also, but for various reasons.
Is that a polite way of saying that they were trying to game the system? Complacent means what, sir?
I mean, they thought that if they are not filing returns or not paying taxes, they'll get away with it. That is not the case. I can tell you we have started data analysis also. We have all the data of the taxpayers. We have the capability of analyzing the data. We have the will to punish the wrongdoers. So we hope with the measures the government is contemplating to take, the taxpayers who are even contemplating of sidetracking the system or not paying their due taxes in time will fall in line. Revenue will definitely increase because GST is such a beautiful system that government revenue is going to increase.
I'll come to the beautiful system in just a second. I know Mr. Lakshmikumaran has a different point of view on just how beautiful it is, sir. But what can we expect in terms of the enforcement measures, sir?
No, I am neither using the expression enforcement, nor am I keen on using the expression danda. What we are going to do is polite request to pay the tax after having precisely analyzed your data at the back end. And some of the anti-avoidance measures, such as e-way bill, and in due course of time, perhaps TDS, etc., will kick in. So there will not be any need for danda. That is not how tax administrations work in today's day and age. We will also not work that way. But the systemic checks which will be built in the system and the power of analytics will itself lead to much higher and better compliance.
Okay, so you're saying that the IT department is going to politely go after people, but I'm sure people in this room will have different stories to tell. But sir, if I may ask you, what is the level of non-compliance that you're seeing specifically, for instance, in the composition scheme? This was something that the finance minister himself had raised as being an area of concern. Now, where are you seeing non-compliance today?
I can't actually give the figures, but we have analyzed the data of first 2 quarters. You know, the average declared value of the transactions is coming around 20 lakhs, even less than that also. You know, if a taxpayer's annual turnover is say 15 lakhs or 18 lakhs or 20 lakhs, we really wonder why they are opting for composition scheme, which is, they are in a way under exemption, below 20 lakhs. So definitely there is some deficiency in the compliance system by the taxpayers, and we hope that things will improve.
You hope that things will improve. Mr. Lakshmikumaran, enforcement measures, tax avoidance measures are coming our way. Politely is what Mr. Sinha would have us believe, no danda. Do you believe that?
I think, Shereen, Kautilya mentioned when he wrote Arthashastra, a taxman without the power of enforcement is like a toothless tiger. The tiger need not always bite nor pounce, but people should know it can bite. But when Mr. Sinha was mentioning that we'll write polite letters, I'm reminded of my wife's polite reminders. What my wife says politely is a command. And what the department is asking politely is really a danda. Whether they want to say it or not, it's a different matter. But look at the other way. I mean, is the right forum probably. I think the senior government officers are here. See, we have inherited.
Just if you can bring the mic a little closer to you.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
See, we inherited a Central Excise Act, 1944. That was enacted before the independence by British ruler against the ruled. If you look at all the provisions, especially penal sections and all those things, the punishment is not commensurate with the offense. It is too heavy. It is like, for example, death penalty for jumping red signal, right? Or stop signal. And we expected, after the independence, the self-rule, and we feel that there is nothing like a ruler or ruled, or democracy, etc. Therefore, we wanted to see that these penal provisions are streamlined, made it in a manner where it is conducive for the business to grow. Of course, punish the people who have been in the wrong side of the law. What we are talking about danda, the law itself, I would say today, is complicated. Whether like it or not, it is a complicated one. For a common man, this GST law is meant for the audience is common man, but common man cannot understand. Let us be very clear about it. And if this law is to be interpreted genuinely where people can make mistakes, if their danda is used, then there is a problem. But where Mr. Singh was mentioning about people who have an under-reporting, undervaluation, etc., this danda has to be used. So therefore, how judiciously are going to use one, and secondly, whether the punishment should be commensurate with the offense or not. There's two things. That, I think, is ultimately will require this.
Mr. Singh, you want to respond to that, sir?
Yeah, Mr. Lakshmikumaran has raised very, very valid point, and we are conscious of these facts that whatever measures we take, they have to be really commensurate with the, the offense which is committed. Right now, I can give you an example. We have started with the basic things by data analysis. When you import the goods, then you have to pay at the time of customs, in addition to the customs duty, you have to pay IGST and cess also. Now you are entitled to take credit on that in your accounts. Now we have checked the IGST and cess paid during the first 6 months with the ITC which has been taken by the importers, by the traders. Now there are mismatches. Huge amount of IGST credit has been taken which was not paid.
Okay.
I mean, in addition to the amount which has been paid at the time of customs, they have taken more. There are huge amount of money which has been taken, I mean credit, which has not been taken by the importers. So they are mismatches. Now
Okay.
we have got this data. We have forwarded this data to the field formations of the CBEC and to the state government to analyze, talk to their local traders, local importers, and find out why this mismatch. So
Okay.
this is not use of danda, this is use of data analytics.
Okay.
On this basis, we'll be able to find out why they have taken more credit or why they have not taken credit when they were entitled to take the credit.
Okay.
One example can be they are, diverting the goods in black market, whatever it can be. But we have the, capability to analyze the data and take action on the basis of that, which will not be very harsh measure also, because they have to just explain.
Okay. Mr. Sinha, if I may ask you, sir, since we're talking about anti-avoidance measures, the Anti-Profiteering Authority as well as the Anti-Profiteering rules had created a great degree of nervousness within industry. We saw after the finance minister made and quite publicly so, the fact that restaurants were not passing on the benefits and certain other industries were not passing on the benefits. We saw a flurry of notices being sent out and so on and so forth. Where do things currently stand as far as anti-profiteering is concerned?
I would say that the characterization that lot of notices were sent may not be appropriate, because you see, the way the legal structure is, if we receive a complaint, then certain information has to be called to see whether that kind of profiteering has taken place or not,
Yeah.
which qualifies as offense in the eyes of law. Generally, in implementation of GST world over, anti-profiteering measures are part of the legal framework and are very sparingly used. But verification is done where a credible complaint is received, information is called for. That is the stage at which most of the action at present has taken place. I would not like to characterize anything as tough enforcement or notice for demanding any money.
No, I think the concern that people are raising is that, look, at what point do you say that, this is the government getting into how I run my business? One of the complaints, for instance, which got a lot of press was the fact that a McCoffee latte was 142 rupees pre-GST and it was 142 rupees post-GST, so then you haven't passed on the benefits of the goods and services tax to the consumer. Now, McDonald's argument was that, let me work out my calculations the way that I want to, and secondly, I may not do something on a McCoffee latte, I may do it somewhere else. So, should the government be getting into such minute details of who should price what at what level?
See, again, whenever you have to do calculation of profiteering, you will have to set up a yardstick. That yardstick can be at the product level, that yardstick can be at the enterprise level. What you are essentially saying is that why should the government look into profiteering at the product level and it should see profiteering at the enterprise level? These were, at that point, actually the rules had not been framed, and therefore all kinds of debate was taking place. Much of it has been sorted out in the rules, and therefore there should not be any difficulty now. Also, you would see that during this period of implementation of GST till now, inflation has more or less remained under control. So if there was a tax cut or there was a credit benefit which was passed on, it will be legitimate for government to expect that the prices will come down. Now, there are few perception studies which have already come
But
about
input
GST.
costs have moved higher, sir. I mean, the commodity cycle has firmed up over the last few months. Oil prices are higher. Raw material costs have gone up. So, in that sense, what is the government's calculation then going to be?
See, again, we cannot perhaps go into individual calculation
Sure.
at this point in time. But what I'm saying is that wherever information has been called for, there has been something credible to look into. And you see, there has been now perception studies across the country at various levels. One of the perception study findings is that most of the consumers have brought out two things to fore. One is that traders are not willing to issue bills and are often offering that, please buy it in cash, don't take the bill. That's pure case of
Yeah.
evasion. And second, in fairly large number of cases where there is a clear case of reduction in tax, the prices have not come down. And third, generally they try to say that GST is over and above this price, and that is not how indirect taxes are. The consideration has the built-in component of tax. So GST iske upar se is the method of collecting extra money and not paying to the exchequer. So
Sure. Yes, sir.
Yeah, in some cases we have found that MRP is a fixed and over and above people are charging GST, whereas the MRP is inclusive of GST. Now, to say that we should not be, such provision should not be there or should not be checked.
So, on the basis of the data that has been collected so far and the complaints that have come in, sir, where do you feel that there is credible cause for concern? Any particular sector, for instance, as I pointed out, I mean, you know, hotels and restaurants were being held up as an example for where things hadn't been passed on. Is there any particular sector where you have such concerns that are cropping up?
For that, you know, 3-tier structure has been created. Standing committees are examining. They have sent it to DG Safeguard. DG Safeguard, I believe, has completed investigation in one case and has sent it to the National Anti-Profiteering Authority. So we are examining, and then, you know, it was thought that the trade and industry would pass on the benefit. Now, the provisions have been drafted in such a way so that the trade and industry doesn't feel harassed. At the same time, we should be able to control these kind of cases. So, as I said, only one case has reached the National Anti-Profiteering Authority. So the government is also moving slowly and examining at the level of standing committee in the states. Then only
are you contemplating any changes to the investigation process as far as the anti-profiteering rules are concerned? No. So it's
some minor tweaking has been done in the just to clarify certain points which were not there, but not major changes.
Okay. Mr. Lakshmikumaran, let me ask you, sir, do you believe that the government has adequately clarified through rules the concerns that industry had when it comes to anti-profiteering?
To the contrary, they are silent about it. Absolutely stone silent as far as the clarification is concerned from the department. And I do not know why. They have been so vociferous, so helpful with regard to other provisions of the GST law. I never expected they did marvelously well. But as far as the anti-profiting is concerned, I think there is no clarification from them. If, for example, today in the morning we had a session on this. The guys who've been selling the toffees for 1 rupee as the retail price, the reduction has taken place. It comes about 7 paisa or 7.2 paisa reduction. And how does he change the MRP on this particular thing? It's not possible. If you do it at the product level, same product, 1 kg, 2 kg, 5 kg, etc., we can. And there are companies who have actually taken into account what the total reduction has taken place on the product as a whole, and they pass on more than that. But still they are worried whether this particular thing will apply or not. So therefore, if the government can clarify, we are looking at this anti-profiteering at the enterprise level, matter solved. Everybody is happy, then we will know very clearly this is where we stand, etc. But I am happy to hear this. What he said was honey to my ears, but it must come in papers. But that has not happened. Therefore, if there is a clarification from the board that anti-profiteering law will apply, we look at the company as a whole, because anti-profiteering is a company. As an enterprise, we look at it.
Mr. Singh, would you like to take that, sir? Why the silence on these so-called clarifications that you claim you've given out, but industry doesn't seem to have picked up on it?
At least I can say till yesterday I have seen all the clarifications.
Well, I can't go into details of what actually, because the actual computation is the job of experts, but I can tell you 2 things. First is, why anti-profiteering? You know, administration of tax is not a picnic. It is not anti-people. Whatever the tax structure is there, it is in the larger good of the people. Whatever tax system we adopt or we implement is what is in the mind of the people, mind of the government. It should benefit the people at large. This is the basic concept. This is the basic philosophy. Since GST is a new system, it's a very, very revolutionary system. So many taxes have been merged and subsumed into one tax. It was all the more important for the government to ensure that whatever the benefits are being given to the traders are actually passed on to the consumers, to the people at large. This is the basic philosophy of the government. This is the basic concept of the government. Now, to implement this system, we have introduced Anti-profiteering, National Authority of Anti-profiteering, NAA, and there is a foolproof system of examining. We cannot brand any company or any individual indulging in profiteering on the whims and fancies of any particular person or officer of the government. There is a full-fledged, foolproof system. There is a screening committee in every state. If you file your application with the screening committee, they'll examine whether this is a prima facie case for profiteering or not. They will send the recommendation to the standing committee, which is in Delhi at the center. They will examine in detail. Examine means what are the documents which the complainant is giving. And then an opportunity will be given to the person or the firm or the company against which the investigations are proposed to be launched. All this evidence will be examined by the standing committee, and if they feel there is a prima facie case for further investigation, it will be forwarded to the investigating agency, that is the Directorate of...
I don't think anybody is arguing about the process. I don't think anybody is confused about the process or arguing about the manner in which you will arrive at a decision on whether this is a case of profiteering or not. I think the concern lies that, look, my input costs have gone up. If I were to hike prices, will you come after me and say that, you know, this is now, you're not passing on the benefits or so on and so forth? Or the practical example that Mr. Lakshmikumaran gave, if my reduction is only 7 paise, now do you want me to actually change at the product level, at the level of a toffee, my price by that much?
These issues are subject matter of investigation. And when the investigation starts by the Directorate General of Safeguards, Mr. Lakshmikumaran and eminent luminaries, legal luminaries, will get an ample opportunity to present their case.
So
it will be examined.
You're going to continue to stay on in business, Mr. Lakshmikumaran. Is the point that Mr. Singh is making?
It will be examined, and impartial and fair judgment will be taken, and it will be recommended to the National Anti-Profiteering Authority.
Okay.
They will also give a chance to the person against whom action is proposed to be taken. I mean, it is fair and impartial manner of determining whether
there is profiteering
has actually taken place or not, and if it is established after this prolonged and impartial process, then of course action will be taken or recommended.
Will be taken. Mr. Sinha, let me ask you, sir, since we're talking about rates, and let me get the three of you to address that issue. We've seen a significant rate rationalization that's taken place. The last big one was in November last year when we saw a significant reduction, especially in the 28% bracket. Would you now say that we're pretty much done when it comes to rate revisions, or do you believe that there is still much more work, especially in the 28% bracket, that remains where we could see a shift down to 18 or 12%?
A very difficult question to answer because they pretty much lie in the realm of decisions of the political executive. Be that as it may, in short run, I do not see major changes in the rates. In the long run, our goal remains to move towards a standard GST and one GST plus rate and one GST minus rate. But that's a long run. But
when you say long run, and I know that this is a political call, sir, but broadly, when we talk about a 3-rate structure, do you think that this is a 5-year timeline that we should be working with, or longer?
Your guess is as good as mine.
But what's the sense that you get? I mean, you're part of what the conversations that happen at the level of the council. What is the sense that you get on the appetite, the political appetite and will to be able to move towards that?
Well, you're trying to corner me on this, but I don't think I can really give you a timeline to the question of rate rationalization, which will further take place. But let me say that this government has shown time and again the courage when it is required to. So whenever the opportunity presents itself, it will be done, and 5 years seems to be a longish timeline. At that, I will close it.
Okay, 5 years seems to be a longish timeline. Mr. Gupta, let me ask you, sir, now about some of the other decisions that are pending. And my understanding was that in the last meeting of the GST Council, there was supposed to be a discussion broadly, at least, on the inclusion of real estate into the ambit of the GST, as well as things like industrial alcohol and so on and so forth. In terms of widening the ambit of the GST, what can we expect, sir?
Again, it is something like which you asked him, So at this point of time, probably the focus should be of whatever has been achieved, it should be consolidated, stabilized, resolved, and whatever little bit tidbits are there, and to smoothen those things, rather than probably taking such big decisions.
So would it be
But
fair then to say that whether it's issues like real estate or inclusions of things like ENA, etc., that's not a priority at this point
no,
in
I'll
time?
not say that. I'll not say that. Again, it has to be decided by political executive that at what point of time they want to take such kind of decisions. But at our level, what we are looking at the officers level is that whatever irritants are remaining, we should work on those. When the time comes and when the political bosses feel that now it is the right time to take that kind of call, they have to, at that point of time, those things can be taken up.
Okay, so I won't get you to second guess what the political bosses may or may not say.
No,
Let me
I'll not
ask
say,
you.
I'll not
Let
say.
me let me ask you at the level of the officers' committee, sir. How practical or feasible is it to consider the possibility of real estate, for instance, coming into the ambit of the GST over the next 12 or 18 months?
These have been under discussion for a long time. It all depends upon, as I said, our focus as the, policy, settling the remaining irritants.
What is the number one irritant that remains on the agenda that
No, for
has to be
example,
resolved?
for example, resolving these issues relating to exports. So
Okay.
we are working overtime to find solutions to this. So things like that are priority for our level. So those calls have to be taken, and when it gets taken, you will come to know that what is the right time.
Okay. Okay, so that's not something that you believe, at least at this point in time, the focus should be on consolidation. Before I come back to you, Mr. Kumaran, let me ask Mr. Singh. So what's the picture now when it comes to revenue shortfalls, specifically when we talk about even the industrial states like Maharashtra, etc., where the picture had emerged that, there were some surprises there. For instance, the states of Goa, etc., continued to see or were laggards. Have you seen a change as far as the state-wise picture is concerned? Of course, you guarantee them compensation for the next 5 years, and you're working with a calculation of 14%. But what's the state-wise picture that's emerged so far?
This is actually too short a period to make very conclusive analysis about the revenue trends, because the situation is changing from month to month, from state to state. So we'll need some more time to, arrive
The
at some
assumption was that the
conclusion.
manufacturing states may in fact lose out, but that hasn't, at least the last piece of data that I saw, that didn't seem to be the case.
This was the assumption in the beginning, but manufacturing states are consuming states also. So really at this point in time, it is very difficult to make any conclusive, assessment about the trend of revenue. We'll certainly require some more time. Maybe after say 3 or 4 months, we'll be able to analyze which the trend, which way the revenue going, whether the consuming states are really gaining, whether the manufacturing state are at a loss, or vice versa. So we will require some more time. We are making, every month we are having this analysis of revenue trend, but so far we are not in a position to make any conclusive decision about this.
Okay, no conclusive picture that's emerged so far in terms of states. But if I could ask you, and we will be approaching the first anniversary of the GST shortly, sir. What has been the big surprise for you from a tax administration point of view, from the manner in which this has been taken up? What's been the single biggest surprise for you?
Manish can answer this question.
You see, rollout of GST has certain known areas where trouble can erupt. One is your disruption in supplies. That is, you see scarcity and a spike in inflation. That has not happened with India. Second, inflation has more or less remained in control. 3, government has responded very quickly to all kinds of problems which erupted post-GST. I don't think there is any other country where this kind of speed was shown to ensure that the trouble doesn't get out of control. There was a large-scale public support for this reform. IGST was a new model which is being attempted for the first time. You have for the first time a federal economy where credit flows across the border. Across the world, otherwise you zero rate it at the border, whereas in India, it has kind of flown across the border through IGST model. For us, the surprise was we were not very sure as to how this entire package will work out, except IT, perhaps where little better results would have really satisfied us. We are happy that the model...
IT has been the big letdown?
I won't say you are using exaggerations of big letdown
Okay.
and all that.
Has been a letdown?
No, we would have wanted to perform better in IT. That's how I will put it. And otherwise, this entire reform package has worked out well and has performed much better than the parameters within which we were expecting. So that's a surprise that it has been remarkably smooth in terms of the scale of the change and national appetite for a large reform of this scale. That's the big surprise.
Yes, Mr. Singh.
If I may add, the biggest surprise of the implementation of the GST is the strength of our federal system. You know, NDA is in power in the center in many states. There are several states where opposition parties are in power. In newspapers, every day you read political parties, labeling allegations against each other. But the biggest surprise of GST was that in all 26 GST council meetings, where finance ministers of all the states are member and Honorable Finance Minister of Center is chairman, all the decisions have been taken by consensus, by unanimous decisions. There have been heated discussions inside the GST council also. But the biggest surprise is not even once voting has taken place, although there is a provision. So this is actually the strength of our federal structure. All, entire country has come together, all the states and center, they have come together with a great hope that the biggest reform in the, indirect tax system will be really beneficial for the country in the long run. So this is, I think, the biggest.
Oh, absolutely. I think there is absolutely no doubt about the fact that you just highlighted, and I think this was something that a lot of people have even commented on, that can we take the GST Council experiment and use it in other aspects, not just in indirect tax. And I think it's commendable that at the end of 26 meetings, we haven't seen the occasion of a single vote, and that most decisions, or all decisions so far, have been taken by consensus. Before I get the audience to chip in with their questions, Mr. Lakshmikumaran, you have a question here on the constitutional law aspect, sir, before I go across to the audience?
They didn't want to answer those questions. I think we will raise it else some other forum, not here in this particular forum.
Okay. Okay.
Because I have fundamental doubt. And the IGST is supposed to be levied under Section 37 under the Custom Tariff Act. Is it under Article 246A or under Entry 83 of the Union list? I don't have an answer.
Mr. Sinha, you want to quickly comment on that?
You see, with all due respect, sir, you have been our teacher, so allow me to differ here.
No, why differ? I'm only asking a question.
Okay, sir.
He hasn't made up his mind yet.
No, what I'm saying is there is a doubt. I will put it like this, that when you are drafting a tax law, so long as the power exists, it is not necessary to identify exactly as to this particular charging section flows from which particular entry. One charging section can flow from multiple entries, and so long as the power exists and that power has been exercised by legislature, it's a bona fide collection of tax. Perhaps higher judiciary will decide this question which you have raised, sir, but that is how I would look at it, sir.
You must know, whenever I raise a question, it's not merely academic. It has got lot of implications. I'm aware that a legislation can be enacted under two different provisions of Constitution, no difficulty. But if this levy is under Article 246A, certain consequences follow. If it is under 83, then some other consequences follow. And therefore, I ask this question, but I don't expect an answer from you at this point of time, but this question will be answered by the judiciary.
Sir, I will say that that question will come into sharp focus only if center and state have that difference. But please understand that the law was approved by the council, so center and state are on same page as to how this money should be transferred or devolved. So
Okay, again, let us not-
We'll let the two of you have that conversation over coffee. Let me throw this open to the audience. If you have a question, please do raise your hands. We'll try and get a microphone across to you. Yes, I can see a hand right at the back. Yes, sir, if you can stand up, please. Yeah, the lady here right in front. Go ahead. Yeah, we should be able to hear you. You can.
Evening, everyone. We have a case where we have our finance minister has said in the budget that we have around 7,000 companies which declare turnover of more than 250 crore. He has said in his budget speech. And there, on the other hand, we have cases where we find that a lot of assessees have opted for composition scheme and their turnover declaration is not up to the expectations. So now to bridge the leakage of revenue, government is coming across with new rules, procedures, tightening of law. The idea is to prevent leakage of revenue. But these 7,000 assessees, which are 0.1% of the, or less than that of the total framework, they are bearing the burden of excessive law, excessive compliance. Whereas the leakage is on the other hand. So is this a case of a missed target?
Okay.
Where, the leakage is by one set of business community, but the compliance is oriented towards the other set of business community, which is working day in, day out to ensure how their businesses can be compliant and how they can shoulder the responsibility of bringing this nation ahead with the government of the day.
Mrs. Sinha.
okay, you see, all taxation law and administration is a challenge between facilitation and enforcement. So what you are saying is, are you doing too much of compliance for a small section which is evading? The answer is no. What I'm saying, no, your question is basically, is the framework becoming the entire compliance framework and the law is becoming such that it is more focused on somebody who's evading? The answer is a clear no. If you see our both enforcement and law, we haven't really brought in new kind of enforcement provisions. None. From the day GST has come, is there anything new which has come? E-way bill was supposed to come, we postponed it and we are bringing it now. Many other provisions which are anti-avoidance have been put on hold. But it is not that there is nothing, there is not even one piece of legislation which is new, which kind of adds to the compliance burden at this point in time. We are aware of what you have said. As the member has also explained, we are doing quite pointed analytics and we are trying to only check those where there is a cause to check. Others are not being disturbed at all.
Okay. We have time for one final question. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
R. Sridhar from Coke. There's one theory that goes around in the industry and trade, that for somebody to derive comfort, there has to be one cycle of complete set of returns. It looks very simple, sir, but then it really makes a lot of sense to the person who's at the factory or who's really doing the work at the bottommost level. A complete set of returns means prior to 1st of July, a person was doing his ER1, he was doing his VAT return, and he was coordinating the timing. Irrespective of the levy was on production, sale, that's a separate issue. But as a person, when he reported into his first superior who looks after taxes and finance, he was appearing and giving him an overall view, this is what I have done for the month. But we are now doing this in bits and pieces. We are doing it in phased timings. So therefore, the complete set of one cycle concept, that where I get a comfort that I have done something right for the last 6 months, is it really, it's not really coming. That's what the trade and industry feel. So when we get the complete cycle going, it will be acceptable. So when do you think that this complete cycle should be coming in for the trade to do it at one go?
See, that's a open-ended question, in as much that how quickly can the returns committee complete its business? Because on the completion of the cycle of return, that's when you will get the completion of the picture. But from the perspective of GST, I'll say that if you are doing your GSTR 3B and GSTR 1 in time and correctly, you are pretty much in the safe zone and on a firm territory. There should not be any difficulty.
Okay.
We had issued a circular of matching which we put on hold, of matching of 1 and 3B, because 2 was not coming, 3 was not coming. So because 2 and 3 were not coming, therefore we put that reconciliation thing on hold. But the trade and industry themselves have filed 1, they themselves have filed 3B. So they should be sure that what supplies they have declared in 1 are same which they have declared in 3B and vice versa. Because that kind, when we do that kind of verification, we find large differences there also. I mean, in 1B you file something else, in 3B you file something else. Similarly, the credit which you take in 3B are entirely different when the GSTR 1B is seen from the recipient side. So, I mean, that kind of internal check is to be done by the trade and industry, that they do not file different information in these returns. I find at least no reason that why the figures of supply in 1 should be vastly different in 3B. There may be possibility that you might have submitted in 1A rather than in 1B in table 3. But the total of 3.1A and 3.1B has to be same when I compare it with 4.5.6 of GSTR 1. We find substantial difference there also. So that kind of internal check, if it is done by the trade and industry, they should be reasonably sure that what they are doing is correct.
Yes, sir, the final question from you. Go ahead.
So I'm Didi Goyal from Maruti. On return matching, I wanted to make a request that as of now it's being said the matching would be needed either HSN wise or line item wise. As a request, if we can start only at invoice and the total tax amount before getting into line this one, at least maybe first phase. So the volume is less and mismatch will be much, much less. Maybe in second phase we can go to HSN or item wise.
So that is the thinking in the discussion within the return committee. Let the final report come. That is what the thinking process is. That initially the matching should be as simple as possible. That is, I'll say that only.
Because in one CII meeting with Mr. Nilkani, his proposal was we should file line-wise, because if line-wise items would become thousands
So
and more.
leave it to the wisdom of return committee.
Thank you.
That should tell you the thinking, at least as far as the government is concerned. We're out of time, so let me end by asking you for closing comments. And Mr. Singh, I'll start by asking you, what to your mind is the single biggest priority that you believe needs to be worked on at this point in time, sir, as we move forward in 2018?
As Mr. Gupta has already told, that at this point in time, our first priority is to give refund to the exporters. There are refunds which are stuck up because of technical reasons and other reasons also. And we have taken this on top priority basis. From today onwards, we are launching a special drive throughout the country. We have sensitized our officers and special efforts will be made. And we hope to finish all the pending refunds by 29th of this month. That is the top priority as on today, because a lot of money is stuck and traders are finding it difficult to do their business. So that's the priority as on now.
And that's also a headline that's come in, that by the 29th you hope to address most of the concerns of exporters. Mr. Sinha, priority as far as you're concerned?
Other than export, I'll say that smooth rollout of e-way bill will be a priority.
Mr. Gupta?
I think these are the two topmost priorities, and then, rather than starting with enforcement of the word you use, danda, we would like to have data analytics done within the department, have a clear analysis as to why there are differences, possible reasons for differences between 1 and 3B, and 1 if seen as 2A of the counterparty buyer, and that compared with the credits in 3B. That exercise we would like to do, but that is a long process. We would like to be very sure about the kind of data the data analytics through. And that is the third priority for us, rather than going, on the roads and, doing dandabaji, etc.
Okay. Mr. Lakshmikumaran.
Oh, I think I'm on the other side of the fence. If you ask me, the lawyer, what is the priority, you must say, get more cases. But I would say, as a citizen, I would like this country to launch and agitate more and more litigations. Should not. They should sit down, understand the provisions, comply with the law, pay the taxes properly, and establish that this country is moving forward in a non-litigious manner, in a manner where the trade industry and the government are in a cooperative mood and move forward and make this economy bigger and bigger. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us here and sharing with us very candidly your thoughts as well as your opinion on the road ahead when we talk about the implementation of the goods and services tax. And congratulations in advance as you approach the first anniversary of the rollout of the goods and services tax. Thank you very much once again for joining us here on the CNBC-TV 18 Taxsutra panel. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Please. And I must thank the CBEC team led by Mahender ji for, for being here full day to share their views, to take our questions. And I reiterate, they've been very, very, very sporting all through the last 12 months and very patient as well. It's not just the industry and the journalists like us who burnt the midnight oil, so as the team here. Before they pose for a group photograph, I request Shereen to please hand over a book, the top 100 indirect tax book, which we brought out this year to Mahender ji. Yeah, that was the top 100 indirect tax rulings of 2017 with a few special articles on GST from Manish ji. And I request Lakshmikumaran sir to please hand it over to. Yeah. Sir, can we expect? So in the 2018 edition next year, I am sure we'll have 20 to 30 cases of GST. And Shereen, the theme for the next year, if in advance, going by this panel, should be GST 2019 marching ahead. So on that positive note, we end the panel. Thank you so much, Shereen, for making it.